Go.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the regular council meeting to order on Monday, August 26th at 4:30 p.m. And I just have a couple opening remarks. I would just like to thank everyone for all the events that have taken place this summer. So much going on with the Rover Challenge, the Plaza, the Community Business Association creating the sidewalk event, the motorcycles, Loud as Hell. And then we have Wayne Stock going on this weekend, and with all the events going on at the the Badlands Amphitheater, it's just been a wonderful, wonderful summer. And as well, I'd like to let everybody know on September 13th and 14th, we have Culture Days coming, and which includes film festival, live music between the Napier Theater and the Downtown Plaza. So thanks to everyone for making all this happen. I've been down the plaza myself a few times. It's been wonderful and just so much going on in the valley. So thank you to everyone, because it takes many, many people to make all these events happen. I don't know if anybody else has anything else they want to add to that. Don't see it. Okay, I'd like to know if there's any additions to the agenda.
No, there aren't.
Okay, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please? Patrick?
I move the council adopt the agenda for the August 26th regular meeting of council as presented.
Please. Stephanie? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And can I get a motion to accept the regular council meetings of August 12th? Tony?
I move that council approve the minutes for the August 12th, 2024 regular meeting of council as presented.
Oh, seconder, please. Crystal? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 6.1.1, please.
Hello. I would like to just give a little bit of information. Kirk McLean is at the end of his first term with the Municipal Planning Commission, and at the last meeting, after meeting closed, he gave his verbal assent to let his name stand for an additional term, which he is eligible for as per the terms of reference. And he has shown an interest in the board and has enjoyed his work on the board and feels that he can still contribute for the next term. And so for that, I would give it back to council for a proposed motion to accept him for an additional term.
I get a motion, please, Crystal?
I move that Kirk McLean be reappointed to the Municipal Planning Commission for a 3-year term ending August 21st, 2027.
Seconder, please. Patrick? Comments? Crystal?
Yeah, just being the chair of the MPC, I really enjoyed working with Kirk. At times he is working away from home, but he always makes the effort to attend virtually. So he always has really great questions and feedback. So it's really good to have him on the team, and I'm really happy that he's going to extend his term for another 3 years. Just my comments. So thanks again to Kirk.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I echo Crystal's comments. I think he's a real keener for wanting to understand land use planning, and I think just his ability to make sure he tunes in every second week to MPC is a real credit to his wanting to learn and stay on the committee. So yeah, super supportive of this.
All right, and anybody else? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Let's move on to 7.1.1, please, and we'll welcome Sergeant Harms, Council Chambers. He's going to present our Q1 report. So I will let you take over, and welcome to Council.
Thank you very much. My apologies. I didn't realize this was a remote meeting, but I quite enjoy your chambers, so I'm still happy to be here and happy to be with your staff. Yeah, so um, what I have before you is the first quarter report. And I just want to give a quick summary on that and just talk about some additional stuff. As everyone knows, I tend to talk fast and cruise through things. So if there's any questions along the way, by all means, just stop me and ask. Um, you should have on your screen the. I don't know how I can scroll that. Oh, okay, got it. There is a cover sheet to the quarterly report, and there's two main takeaways on that cover sheet that I just kind of want to touch on. That first paragraph makes reference to the 2023 wildfire season being a very devastating season, and I think probably the worst in Alberta's history, if I understand it right. At the time this letter was prepared, we were making reference to being prepared for the 2024 wildfire season. Well, as it turns out, obviously the 2024 season is well in swing right now. At the start of August, I sent to the town a letter that indicated Article 9 of the Provincial Policing Service Agreement was invoked and put in place. And all that is it's through the provincial policing agreement. It basically says that the province can deploy a certain amount of members from basically any and all detachments to meet the needs in this emergent situation, sort of thing. Um, the one thing I want to stress on that is it's nothing to be too fearful of. Yes, they might come to us for resources, to send to the wildfires. That's nothing new. We go through this every year. And the one thing that we're very mindful of is if we do wind up sending people to help out on these fires, that we're not going to deplete ourselves to the point where we can't police. So we always make sure that things are taken care of first in our home communities. But it may mean that we have to send people to help out there. With that said, I don't think we've sent anybody yet. The RCMP have been well prepared for this season, and it's quite satisfying to see that there's not a big drain on resources, especially down this way. So, anyway, I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. And again, that letter was sent at the start of August to the town. Um, in addition, they then talk about G7, which we just recently learned is being held in Kananaskis next summer sometime. The last I heard, we didn't have a firm date on that. But when the G7 meetings happen, the G8, the G20s, it actually turns out to be quite a police response. Now, I don't know that that Article 9 is going to apply for the G7 meeting, but one thing that we're quite certain of is, again, there's going to be a drain on police resources, especially in southern Alberta, and it might impact us in the local area, or we might have to send some members down to G7. It is way too early for me to tell, how that's going to impact us if we're going to have to send resources, but it's probably noteworthy just mentioning that this detachment might be slightly impacted by that. Again, not worried. We always take care of our policing at home before we contribute to things like that. The next document I provided is not typical of our quarterly report, but I thought it might be of interest to anyone. It's regarding Crime Severity Index, often referred to as CSI. All CSI is, it's a numerical value that represents how much crime you have in your community and how severe that crime is. And I don't know the exact, the mathematics to come up with that number, but that's what that number represents. Recently, the CSIs for Drumheller and all communities in Alberta were solidified for 2023. And I understand there was actually some adjustments in 2022 as well. The takeaway on this one is the CSI for Drumheller is 116. And if you look on the chart on the top right hand corner of that page that I have on the screen, that's a decrease of 18.3% from the previous year. And in fact, it's the lowest since 2018. So that's quite impressive to see for me. it tells me that we're working on the right things, and crime rates are headed the right direction. So one might ask, well, how does that compare to the rest of the province? Well, the rest of the province, the average is 103. So again, we're at 116, so we're trending high, or I should say higher than the average for the province. But like any stat, we have to understand our stats. And in my opinion, there's nothing there to be concerned about, because one of the main drivers on Drumheller's CSI value is drug enforcement. And our drug enforcement is representing 22, almost 23% of that CSI. I'm okay with that, because that is actually reflective of proactive work that we're doing. And the double-edged sword to doing proactive work, arresting people for trafficking drugs, seizing drugs. The double-edged sword is it does contribute to our CSI value. So it's a number we have to understand. From my perspective, things are looking pretty good when it comes to CSIs. I will move along.
Just a question there, Staff Sergeant.
Yes,
Does that include the penitentiary as well? Would
It-
that be
it
one of
does.
one of the things?
Yeah, it does. And there has been some aggravated assaults, even homicides in the penitentiary, if not this year, in previous years. So all of that is factored into that. There's a little bit more information about CSI and some general info, if you care to read that. The Q1 report then goes into the typical things that you see on our Q1 reports. The next couple pages is community consultations. I'm not going to go through all that. I will say on that, by no means does that include all of our community consultations. It's kind of a snapshot of who we talk to and what we talk about. The report then goes into the detachment priorities. I provide town and council with a fairly detailed, I guess you could say, report on our detachment priorities and where we're at with our initiatives. So just as a reminder, we're working on we established the same priorities as we had last year. And whenever you have a detachment priority, you establish initiatives to address that priority. For example, if your detachment priority is impaired driving, one of our initiatives is we're going to hold check stops to address that. So I think we have 13 initiatives in total for all of our priorities. And we're meeting majority of those initiatives, not all of them. And I actually had a breakdown on that. I think it's about 60% of the initiatives we're meeting. And I'm actually quite happy with that, because I will be talking in a second. We've actually had some staffing shortages and so on. But bottom line on the priorities, things are looking pretty good. And, we're just partway through our fiscal year, and we have a lot of time to keep working on those. So things are looking good there. Statistics, there's several pages in this report regarding statistics. This is kind of a summary page. If you look at the quarterly side of things, looking very, very good. 44.07% reduction in persons crimes, 31.5% reduction in property crime, overall 40.3% reduction in total crime for the quarter. The right-hand column represents year over year. And again, just some very, very favorable numbers there. For the most part, we like to see stuff in the negatives, which we're seeing. You will see drug offenses is actually 196%. That is, again, a good number that I'm happy with, because that reflects our proactive arrests, drug seizures, and so on. So that's one stat we don't mind going the other way and showing an increase. Any questions about the stats there? Okay, I will roll on. I usually don't spend too much time on this part. This is kind of our HR report for the detachment. The municipality has 11 positions, and we have 3 MEs, complements of the town. The one thing I'll say about this last quarter, We've definitely been challenged with various absences, some of it illness related, some of it injury related, kind of on both sides, on the operation sides and the admin side. It has impacted things a little bit, um, but it has not impacted core policing, if that makes sense. So the things that would have impacted is some of the policing priorities like coffee with a cop. Some of our check stops are not quite as high as or quite as numerous as we wanted to do. I think our ticket counts are a little bit lower than normal. So there's definitely a impact to operations. Again, with that said, I just want to stress core policing has not been impacted. We always make sure that we can maintain that, and there's absolutely no concerns with that. So just something I wanted to point out. This last portion that I'm going to talk about with respect to the report is just the finances. I think for the most part, um, we're up to speed on this. There's been lots of activity. Um, I attended a council meeting several months ago, and I spoke about the increased cost of policing year over year. Um, Most certainly that is happening, and this report somewhat reflects that. One thing, and just in the name of transparency, one thing that did occur that maybe I wasn't fully expecting, or all of us were fully expecting, is we did kind of ratify our collective agreement. We knew there was going to be wage increases. Those wage increases were higher than we anticipated. Um, I think we had a 3.5% expectation on those wage increases written into our financial planning, and they came in higher than that. So that has impacted the numbers a little bit. With that said, um, this section here makes reference to the multi-year financial plan. That is kind of our 5-year projections on the cost of policing, which is a separate report. Um, that is finalized, and we're in the final draft of that. And in fact, I have a meeting with Daryl and with Greg Peters in the first part of September to kind of go over that. I think, if I'm right, on behalf of council, and just make sure that's fully understood, and what that multi-year financial plan is it not only shares what the 5-year numbers are, but it also speaks to what the cost drivers are. So again, it's a full transparency thing. If anybody questions where these costs are coming from, that's kind of what that report is. So I do have here tonight. That's the rest of that report. I did add a summary page here from that multi-year financial plan. And I just wanted council to see that if you haven't seen it already. So this is it here. Is there a way we can shrink this down a little bit? I'll just try and get it shrunk down a little bit.
Bottom on the right side, the little magnifying glass with a negative. Keep going down to your mouse. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's just a summary page from that multi-year financial plan. But again, I just wanted council to see that. It's the same report I spoke to several months ago when I started talking about the anticipated increased cost of policing. So this is very much the same report. The only difference is there's an additional year picked up on this one. And some of the years that I spoke of previously, there's been some critiquing on the costs and so on. And for the most part, looking forward, a lot of the new anticipated costs are actually a little bit less than the numbers I had discussed months ago when I first started talking about this. So, but for the most part, I mean, consistent, just a little bit less. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And again, there is a massive support document that goes with this that explains all these cost drivers. And that is something that Daryl and Greg and I are going to be reviewing in the first week of September. Does anybody need me to
Quick
go?
question there, Sergeant.
Yeah.
Yeah, quick question on that grade area there. Drumheller established positions, you have 12, and then net per member is 11. Our complement is 11 or 12?
So good question.
I think
So
back on your page 10 was 11, right?
that's right. So it's always been 11. The reason this report is showing 12, and I don't know if you can see my mouse there, but the reason it shows 12 is some time ago, and I don't know how far back this goes, there was actually an additional position written into the multi-year financial plan. In other words, the detachment was hoping to get an additional position. When it was written into the plan, it was written that it could be a new sergeant position or a constable position. The costs were relatively close to each other. So that is what that 12 is representing. Um, the number under that 11 is actually what we're at. So part of the discussions that I'm going to be having with Daryl and Greg, I think everyone's on the same page and understand that it's probably not feasible to proceed with that new position right now. And my understanding is those costs for that new position are not reflected on any of these financials, only that one number that you're referencing, if that makes sense. So probably what
Thank
we'll
you.
do once we finalize it is that'll go back to the established positions. It'll show 11 right across the board.
Thanks.
Did that make sense and cover your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other questions about that? Maybe something I will add to on this. The first two statements up at the top here are what they called, you can see each one of those charts is labeled. There's pooled direct costs and then there's pooled indirect costs. Those are not your costs per se. However, Drumheller pays a portion of those, and that portion is dictated by how many members we have working. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. Don't be horrified by those massive numbers because they are massive. But that is basically the cost drivers to all the municipal detachments in Alberta with a population between 5,000 and 15,000. So they basically add all those costs together between those two statements, if you will. And as I scroll down to the bottom of the report, they start to break it down and eventually come up with a cost per member. And then if we have 11 members working, we are then saddled with that cost per member times 11 members, if that makes sense. Now, on top of that, I know we talked about this last time. It's important to remember here, once you get that cost per member, the federal government covers 30% of that cost. So right off the bat, there's a reduction of 30%. This bottom statement that we're looking at, that is direct cost to the detachment. So then that gets added on to that cost per member. And these are more direct costs such as overtime, some operating expenses and so on. So that's kind of just in a nutshell how those costs come together. And then we wind up with the costs that you see down at the bottom projected for each year. Is there any questions about that?
This is Victoria's. I just would like to know whether the this forecast included the latest the arbitrations contract awards.
That is a great question. The answer is yes. It does include that. The other thing I want to point out is it really includes everything. I think there was some suggestions or beliefs that it doesn't cover certain costs. It literally covers everything. Now, when I say everything, there's a whole bunch of reasons cost of policing is going up. One of them is what they call the modernization project, and that is the replacement of old equipment or the addition of new equipment. And there's actually a lot of changes there, and that's contributing to the cost of policing. And in fact, if you look at the top statement, it falls under what's called crops. And what crops is criminal operations. And that is things like the new tasers we have received, the new sidearms that we are receiving, new ballistic shields, some non lethal, kind of safer weapons to use for high risk situations. That is all put in there. And if you look at each year, you can kind of see the impact in each year. So some stuff, when it comes in, it's, I guess you could say it has minimal impact. And as the fiscal years go on, you might see more of a heavy impact. And in some cases, it's the other way around. Like, I think it's body cams. There's a significant cost right off the bat. So that's not really lessened or increased as the fiscal years go on. So just kind of that just touches on a few things. But my takeaway point on there is I want everyone to understand when we talk about this cost of policing, especially year over year, and with the forecast, that is inclusive of pretty much everything that we're going to see. Will it change, fluctuate, and be adjusted? Absolutely, because a lot of this is based on estimations when we're going to receive the product. You know what the costs are now. Sometimes the cost changes. I understand there's going to be a decrease with the body cam expenses. I think if I understand it right, we're actually going to be coming in lower than what we anticipated. So there's going to be some fluctuations, but again, it does include pretty much everything.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, just one comment regarding administrative assistants. So this does not include the administrative assistant positions that the town funds, does it?
That's correct, because the town provides 3 municipal employees. That cost of providing those people is not captured in this report here. If you see some indications of administrative positions being paid for, that would be support positions at different levels that basically support policing in Alberta.
Patrick?
Thank you. My question kind of circles away from the finances. If other people have other questions before that, or
Daryl?
I had a question about the finance, just, Rob, you mentioned, the collective agreement just signed. Does the collective agreement expire in this 5-year term?
It does. My understanding is it comes up again, I believe it's next year. How that's going to impact these forecasts, I'm not sure, Daryl.
So the accountants at the RCMP haven't adjusted, put in a number for a potential increase after next year then, in these forecasts?
So I've asked that same question of my finance people, and if I understand it correctly, there's not an additional amount added into there for a potential increase.
Okay. And then just one other question, sorry, Pat. You mentioned CSI early on in your presentation. And the number for Alberta was 102 or 103. Is that for RCMP patrolled areas, all of Alberta, or what?
It's my understanding that's right across Alberta.
Okay, so it includes Calgary, Edmonton, plus Drumheller and Trochu.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll double check that, Daryl, and if it's different, I'll let you know.
Patrick?
Thanks, and thanks for the presentation. Just circling back to the drug enforcement and understanding how the numbers can be skewed because of the enforcement initiatives. I'm just curious, and I'd like you to comment on the issue of drugs and addiction in the community, and how do we sort of accurately gauge it insofar as the seriousness, and if there are other initiatives beyond enforcement that we should be looking at.
Yeah, that's a good question. It is really hard to gauge drug activity and the drug problems in a community per se. Um, our stats do include, I guess you could say, they would include reports of drug activity, people calling us and actually making those reports. But in that same statistical category, it includes us. If we generate a new file or a new investigation, it adds to that same category. So that's what I mean by those numbers get inflated, and I'm okay with that because, I know we're seeing more inflation from the members, probably than what's being called in, so to speak. As far as how we address it, um, there is no doubt there is drugs in this community. Is it any worse or any less than any other Alberta community? Difficult to gauge, and I would say not necessarily is it any better or any worse, but the drugs are here. And, we have general duty uniformed members that do what they can, and we have a plainclothes section, that do what they can as far as drug activity. And in fact, the plainclothes section, uh, I would hazard a guess that about 90% of their work, or maybe 85% of their work, is focused on drug activity. And that's really, really important because we've made connections between drug activity and other crime. Uh, drugs and drug activity is a root cause, or at least a factor.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you so much for your time and thank you for that updated quarterly report. And we appreciate all the work you do putting that together for us and the community.
Thank you very much, and everyone have a great evening.
Okay, you take care. All right, we'll move on to 8.1.1, please, Daryl.
Actually, Mitch has the next two he's presenting, so.
Okay, sounds good.
Good afternoon, council. So first I have a request for decision on the remuneration task force bylaw. So the remuneration task force is something that's required by our policy C0622, which requires us to set up a remuneration task force in the third year of every council term. The remuneration task force is tasked with reviewing all of council's remuneration, base pay, travel and general expenses, allowances, per diems, benefits, training, etc., and suggesting a remuneration pay for the following council. So so I have attached a task force bylaw to this. It's a terms of reference for the actual committee. Some things to note on the task force bylaw. So it will be established every year in the third year of council. The task force will meet as needed to make a report that they will provide to council in an open session. Following that report to council, they will dissolve. The task force will consist of between 4 and 6 members, voting members, one of which will be appointed as a chair. It will also consist of ex officio non-voting members, the chief administrative officer being one as needed, and a task force support staff who will assist with providing any statistics or other information such as comparisons to other municipalities. And so Angela has already provided or consolidated some information that she will be able to provide to the task force. So we'll just need you to review and approve the bylaw, and we can begin as soon as possible, starting to recruit. Also, Erica has helped with putting together media release. So we're hoping to recruit members between now and October 1st, and then together a task force, meet as needed, and then bring a report to council in an open session.
Thanks so much, Mitchell. Can I get a motion, please, council, for first reading? Tom?
Yeah, I move the council give first reading to Remuneration Task Force Bylaw number 23.24 as presented.
Seconder, please. Crystal, all in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion for second reading, please? Tony,
I move that council give second reading to remuneration task force bylaw number 23.24 as presented.
seconder, please. Stephanie, comments? Tom?
Yeah, just one comment, where it talks about, pay. My understanding is that council doesn't get pay, we get an honorarium. So I don't know, just splitting hairs maybe, but
Yeah, that's fair. I think that could be just a wording that we could change to make it more consistent if needed.
Crystal?
Yeah, so obviously, I wasn't here last term, so I just, this isn't a new thing. Happens every council term in third year, right? So this is just, we're finding new people to do it for this term. Correct? It's not the same, could it be the same people that did it the last term? If they
Yes,
okay,
yeah, it could be, yeah.
okay. No, that was
What
just
is
my
di-
quick question.
And what is different, Crystal, is that previous councils, it was in the first year of the term. So basically, you would get elected, and then one of the first orders of business was to create a group that would then look at your pay for that term. And the last previous council changed that to reflect the end of your term, not the beginning of your term. So
Well, that makes sense, because, yeah, you know, you're probably spent a little bit more in 3 years instead of 1, so.
Yeah.
No, this is great. I hope we have a good group of people that step forward for this.
Patrick?
So just bearing in mind that change in the policy for the timing of this, can we say when the last the task force was struck? How long it's been since it's been done?
The last task force was 2020, would have been 2021.
I would believe it was our third year, because, yeah, we were the council that
Then.
changed it to the third year because we didn't feel, how can you, you don't even know what the work is in the first term, so you, and to be fair to council to those going forward, it's only fair that that previous council can, have a better understanding, and then it's better for that committee to know, have an idea what's going on as well.
Okay, no, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, all in favor, second reading? Carried. Can I get a motion to go on to third reading, please? Crystal?
I move that council gives unanimous consent for third reading of remuneration task force bylaw number 23.24. Oh my goodness, I need to go back to school, I think, next week.
As presented. Just add the as presented.
As presented.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Tom? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to go to third reading, please? Tony?
I move that council give third reading to remuneration task force bylaw 23.24 as presented.
Seconder, please. Patrick? Comments? I just have, Erica, when will this then be posted? Coming up here right away, or?
Hoping to see it posted before the end of this week, Heather.
Okay, wonderful. So those who are listening, if you're interested in being on that committee, please watch for that post. And yes, it's a good opportunity for the committee or community to give their input as to what future councils can expect. So thank you to everyone for that, and all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to 8.1.2, please, Mitchell. And I believe Patrick will have to,
Yeah, I would like to recuse myself for the potential of a conflict in this matter.
okay, sounds good. We will call you back when we're done this part. All right, Mitchell.
Moving on, to the advertising bylaw and circulation advertising standards policy. This one's a little less straightforward. To give you some context, section 606 of the MGA establishes requirements for advertising bylaws and other statutory items or requirements within the MGA. So within section 606, we're required to publish in a accredited local newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks in the paper, or mail out and deliver to every residence affected by the public hearing, bylaw, etc. Or we're allowed to give another method under section 606.1. So section 606.1 was added to the MGA later and allows municipalities to set their own advertising bylaw to give them some more flexibility in how they actually advertise. So essentially, we are wanting to do this in recognition that we have this beautiful website and we push people to this website, and we want the website to be the hub of information for the town. But we recognize obviously that the newspaper is still very important and widely used, and so the idea is not to stop using the paper. We're going to continue to use the paper, but we also want to add some flexibility in how we do advertise, and this will allow us to, for example, publish these public hearings notices on our website and continue to push people towards our website. So we have essentially this request for decision has 2 components. So one, it's that advertising bylaw, which again, allows us to have some flexibility in how we advertise and sets up different means by which we can advertise. And then there's the policy, and the policy will actually, it's a guideline for staff and how we will actually advertise. So in particular, you'll see in the policy itself, it sets some minimum standards for circulation distances for development, for the development permits. And so again, to give you some context, so currently any kind of development permit is circulated based on best practices and at the discretion of the development officer. Will continue to be circulated at the discretion of the development officer to some degree, but we want to set some minimum standards so that we have something written down in a policy. And then if the development officer deems it necessary to go above and beyond those standards, then they'll have that opportunity. So essentially, this whole policy is setting those minimum standards for advertising. And again, if the CAO, development officer, etc., wants to go above and beyond in terms of these advertising requirements, they're capable of doing so. So that's kind of the general purpose. Any questions on that?
Okay, council, typically we don't comment on first reading of bylaws or policies. However, to give any direction of changes you may want to see or questions you might have, please do so now, and then we'll call for first reading, because then after that it goes to a public hearing anyways. So Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question for clarification. A lot of the policy seems to pertain to development permits and stuff. Is this all advertising of the town, or is it mostly affecting MPC and development?
I would say it's mostly affecting MPC development, although there is some other guidelines for advertising within it. And the hope is to develop a policy that applies to all our advertising with the town. But you'll also notice within the policy, I think it's under general regulations, what we have put in the policy is, so one of the intentions is we have to advertise for road closures in the paper currently, which takes up a large section of the newspaper. In section 7, it allows us to post in the newspaper a condensed version. So rather than having the whole public hearing or road closure bylaw within the paper with a map inside of it, we can put the original on the website and have something in the paper that's pointing people to the website. And so it is primarily development, but there's other components within this policy. And I think as we go forward, we might develop it in further years, as we kind of get a better grasp of the minimum standards we want for advertising.
So that would apply to the flood office as well then, as far as expropriation ads that take up a whole page kind of thing, they could be condensed?
Yeah, I would have to double check the requirements in the MGA for expropriations. I do believe it does, but again, I'd have to double check specifically on flood expropriation.
Thanks.
Tom?
Yeah, I just hope that we have an appreciation that different people gather information differently. And I guess I'm talking, maybe about seniors particularly who, a lot of them, they don't use websites. They don't access websites. They just don't. And so I hope that we appreciate that, there are lots of people out there that want information and get it from very traditional sources. And so hopefully we can accommodate that.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And I think that's very important as well. So part of this is we're going to have a public hearing in regards to this bylaw, advertising bylaw. It's a requirement of the MGA. And I think there we want to have the opportunity to get some feedback in how people do receive advertising or kind of media from the town. But I think the intention of it really is that we want to keep advertising in the paper, but in a condensed format. So rather than having that long, flood expropriation advertisement that takes up half a page, we want to have the information that's actually pertains to the people reading the paper. So have enough information for them to know what it's about and to know where to go for more information, but still have that information there for them. So thank you.
Crystal?
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I just got a notification my internet was unstable, but so again, like it says in the summary, according to the MGA, it still has to be delivered to every resident in the area of a proposed bylaw, right? So those things are still going to be happening when it comes to mail-outs and physical paper things, right? So, like you said, the paper part, it'll just be a more condensed version, directing people to go to other areas to find out more information. And hopefully that eliminates the concern with the seniors a bit too, so.
For sure. So like for a road closure, for example, we're still going to mail out. And so we're kind of going above and beyond a little bit here as well, in terms of we're setting a pretty high minimum standard for road closure for the area in which we want to directly circulate a piece of paper. And again, even with developments, we still have that for example, for residential discretionary use, we're still circulating that notice within a 100-meter radius. And so again, we're kind of almost upping that minimum standard quite a bit. So in some ways, we're making it better, easier for us and for residents in terms of the newspaper, but then we're also increasing our requirement to advertise in a lot of other areas as well, as we think it's necessary.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anybody else. Can I get a motion, please, council? Tony?
I move that council give first reading to bylaw number 24.24, advertising bylaw and policy DP-C-03, circulation and advertisement standards, and sets a public hearing date for September 23rd, 2024 to discuss.
Seconder, please. Tom? All in favor? Carried. All right, we'll move on to 8.2.1, please, Victoria.
Good evening, Council. So this is a request for municipal tax cancellations, and this is an annual request as a result of the agreements that the town has with the Drumheller Housing Administrations in providing the social housing with respect to the Sandstone manor. So in 2024, the municipal tax portions is $14,526.74. And under the MGA, social housing property itself is not tax exempt. And the MGA allows the council, which is the only body that can cancel any tax, municipal tax portions. The DHA, the Drumheller Housing Administration, has already paid for their provincial requisitions on August 15, 2024. So as we saw, this is the only amounts that is asking or seeking council's approval to cancel the municipal tax portion for Sandstone Manor for $14,526.74. And I also would like to bring that to council attention is that the agreements with the DHA is expired. We are working on an expired terms. And I believe that that is a ongoing discussions with respect to renewing the agreements or revamp the agreement in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. Can I get a motion, please, Council? Tom?
Yeah, I move that council approve the cancellation of the 2024 municipal tax levied against roll number 04029906 from Heller Housing Administration in the amount of $14,526.74.
Seconder, please. Crystal? Comments? Tom?
Yeah, a couple of comments. First of all, I have never understood why we are charging taxes to a building that the town owns. I guess that's the way it is. Second thing, my understanding also is that over the years, the Drumheller Housing Administration has presented the town with a check that will go into reserves, basically to pay for another Sandstone Manor or significant repairs or replacement or that kind of thing. So I think it's certainly a good deal all around.
So maybe I can respond on this. So so when the province create DHA, they already saying that all the assets related to social housing are supposedly transferred to DHA. Somehow it hasn't been done. So all this social housing stock is still under the name of Town of Drumheller. Even though the ordering council, the provincial ordering council saying that all assets liabilities should have been transferred to DHA. So technically those are not the town's building, those are DHA. And that is why that is a requirement that for us to actually cancel the tax, because technically those are not for municipal services, those are for social housing purposes. So, and then the second part, yes, we do set money aside. That is a reserve account for the Sandstone Manor. So hopefully that the money would be sufficient enough for any major upgrades or replacement of the building.
Crystal?
Yeah, just being the chair of the DHA, just a couple comments. So every year we do provide some for the reserves. We don't have the amount yet as we're just kind of going through some budget stuff in our next couple of meetings coming up. But it has been anywhere from like $25,000 to $40,000 each year, just depending on what we have left over and what kind of work has been completed. So we just got our financials from the province as to what they're going to be contributing. So we're just as a board trying to going through all that. So I'll probably have an update closer to probably November as to how much money we'll be able to put in the reserves. So just kind of an update, but yeah, we do present that every year. So, and yeah, and I know Victoria and I and DHA are working through that new agreement. So yeah, lots happening.
Tom?
Yeah, just curious, Victoria, do we know offhand what that reserve sits at? Any idea?
I have to get back to you on this.
Okay.
Crystal?
Yeah, don't quote me, but it's around 236,000, somewhere around there at the moment. So I was just gonna go look back at our last board meeting for the exact number.
Anybody else? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, Jason, you're up. 8.3.1, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this is just a motion to council to approve the replacement of bridge number 11 out in Wayne. So we went through a competitive tender process. The lowest bid we received that was also technically compliant was submitted by a company called Sure Seal out of the Calgary area. And they've put a proposal in for just over 1.3 million. So we did it a little differently than usual. Instead of having a consultant do up a package and then putting that out for tender, we decided to put this out as a design build proposal. So it was up to the contractors to actually submit the proposal on how they were going to construct the bridge. And along with that came, the associated pricing to do so. So we feel, this is probably the best price we're ever going to get. It's substantially lower than the previous submission that was put in. I think back in 2022 or 2023. And the good thing with this design build is it kind of puts a lot of the onus on the vendor or the contractor to ensure that, the engineering, everything's good to go and that it's going to work. From a technical, sort of high level technical aspect point, their submission was technically relevant. Over the next few months, we'll get more detailed designs from them that we can review. And we'll take advantage of Mr. Steffler as much as we can with his civil engineering background and kind of go from there.
All right, can I get a motion, please, council? I want to move this one. Patrick.
I move the council approve the award of the Bridge 11 replacement project to Sure Seal Contracting for the amount of $1,317,785, excluding GST.
Seconder, please. Stephanie. Comments, please. Patrick.
Just, do we chalk up the difference in these bids from the one that we had to cancel in 2022 because of the design build process, or is there something, or is it just a different look, or?
Yeah, that was kind of hard to answer. This isn't going to be a fancy bridge by any stretch of the imagination. So their proposal was for, it's basically like a 3-piece modular steel bridge. It'll have rail ties on top. We can change that to pavement if we want to, but it will be a structurally sound bridge that should last a very, very long time. These bridges, typically you'll see them on smaller highways or, smaller residential roads where there's not a lot of traffic. There was no requirement to have it double laned, anything like that. So this is kind of, for all intensive purposes, this is a bare bones solution. And the great thing with Sure Seal's submission was that they're actually going to extend the bridge deck out past the existing abutments, so they don't have to go anywhere near the river, which probably saves a year or two of approval time between DFO and the ministry. So they should be able to do most of their work with minimal permitting required, which is huge. As far as the actual cost savings, a lot of it is probably from the original design. Seems quite frequently to happen more and more now that when you put these out to consultants, they kind of give you the most optimal solution. Let's put it that way. I don't want to mix words, but sometimes their designs are a little overarching and probably a little over-engineered for what we really needed. So that's probably where we're going to save most of the money.
Tom?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say this is great. Very, very, very good news for a lot of people. One question comment, this bridge will be able to accommodate fairly large vehicles that will need to cross it. Like I'm thinking right now, a school bus cannot cross that bridge.
No, it will be fully compliant to the way the bridge used to be, let's say 30, 40 years ago. So it will meet all of Alberta Transportation's regulations. The loading should go back to exactly what it was, which I believe was 40 tons, if I'm not mistaken. Like it will meet all the criteria of a normal, Alberta Transportation bridge.
Okay. And second thing, I know there are people in Wayne that are very interested in what is going on with this bridge and wondering if we could set up an information session sometime. We were thinking the next Wayne community meeting is on Thursday, September 19th. Maybe somewhere in there we could think about doing that.
Yep, absolutely. I'm more than available anytime.
Crystal?
Sorry about that. Tom asked my one question. The other question is, there's still the contribution from the county. They contributed. Is that still part of this as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe there's also a provincial grant that was tied directly to Bridge 11 that should still be available, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I think within that grant funding, the town has to pay 25% of the total fee. Province pays for the rest. So from a town perspective, it's a pretty good deal.
Stephanie?
Jason, thanks for all the hard work you've done on that. I think pretty much all my questions have been answered now. I guess just I'm assuming there's some sort of warranty after all the work's done, and I'm just wondering how long the warranty is good for.
I'll have to confirm that, but I think nowadays it's probably like a typical, from any of the actual construction works, it's probably like a year or so, that they're gonna have just a, a standard kind of warranty. From the bridge structure itself, I will get that information and make sure it gets back to you.
Thank you very much.
I think it was 10 years on the bridge itself, but I'll confirm that.
Okay, anybody else? All right, kudos to all of everybody at the infrastructure team. It's exciting. This bridge, one was brought to us a few months ago, was like in the multi-millions. We did push back because the reality is it's the taxpayers of Drumheller carrying the load of the cost. And then with your guys's, efforts to the grants, efforts with the county, now this bridge has come in, and it's be realistic. There's not a lot of, it's not like Gordon Taylor Bridge where you have hundreds of thousands of people crossing it. And the fact that I love the fact that you kept it aesthetically with the way the bridges are out there, single bridges. I mean, that's part of the whole character of the area, and I think that those constantly using it will respect that effort was made. So, Jared, Jason, and the fact that you're not consulting to death, sorry, I shouldn't say that publicly, but I'm ecstatic that you guys thought outside the box for a different way. And that's all we're asking as council, is to extend the dollars we can. And you guys have done that remarkably on this project. So there's just not enough words to say thank you on this one. So thank you to all of you, and share it with everybody involved. All right, all in favor, council? Carried. Awesome, you guys. Thanks again. Okay, I need a motion, please, council, to go into closed session. Tom?
Yeah, I move that council close the meeting to the public to discuss third-party business and local public body confidences as per FOIP 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, FOIP 23, local public body confidences, and FOIP 24, advice from officials.
Please. Crystal? All in favor? Carried. All right, everyone, thank you for being with us tonight. We are going to be done after this closed session. Our next meeting is September 9th. We will be back to our regular council schedules. We will be back in council chambers. I hope everybody had a wonderful summer. Enjoy the long weekend coming up. And we will be back hard in the fall. So take care of yourself and thanks again. Have a great week.